Hi everyone, this is Arthur Acevedo. Welcome to my channel, Arthur Acevedo, Spiritist Diffusion, or Arthur Azevedo, Difusão Espírita. This is our second video in English so that we can also let you know, you English native speakers, about some important things about Spiritism and the Spiritist movement. I'm, again, Arthur Acevedo, a Spiritist disseminator for more than 25 years and author of 4 books on the subject. Well, today we're going to talk about the effects of eclecticism and of heterodoxy in the French Spiritist movement. So we consider this subject to be very important for you because maybe you guys who are from other countries don't know much about some of the things that have taken place, that have happened in the Brazilian Spiritist movement, and that may be kind of influencing the international Spiritist movement around the world, right? So, as I said, we're going to talk about this and about the syncretism, the miscellanea of Spiritism with other spiritualist schools, disfiguring Spiritist practice in its totality is the cause, and this is the cause of disappearance of Spiritism in France. As you know, as we know, Spiritism appeared in France in 1857 with the publication of the Spiritist book by the professor Hippolyte Léon Denizar Rivel, who used the nom de plume Allan Kardec so that a distinction was made between this book and works originating from his profession as a respected pedagogue and disciple of Pestalozzi. With the success of the first work of the Spiritist codification achieved, a foundation of all its philosophic construction, Allan Kardec decided to establish the Parisian Society of Spiritist Philosophy in Paris on the 1st of April 1858, the existence of which was justified in the following manner. Let me show you. So he said, or he wrote, the universal extension, so to speak, that Spiritist beliefs have daily, vividly need the creation of a regular center of observations. This gap has just been filled. We have the pleasure to announce the formation of the society, which is composed exclusively of serious people who are free from prejudices and filled with a sincere desire for clarification. Since its beginnings, the society has counted upon, amongst its associated people, eminent men and women for their knowledge and their social position. We are convinced that the society has been called to pay incontestable services to the finding of the truth. Its organic law secures it a homogeneity without which there will be no vitality possible. It is based on the experience of man and of things, and on the knowledge of the necessary conditions to the observations which are the object of its researches. Here in Paris, those who are strangers to Spiritist philosophy and who are interested in it will have a center which they will be able to visit and communicate their own observations. So that's what Kardec said at the time, right? Or wrote at the time when he decided to establish the Parisian Society of Spiritist Philosophy on April 1858, right? So this is very important, so that we must take this into consideration, right? All this into consideration. So according to the report of April 1862, published in the Spiritist magazine or Spiritist Review, the society experienced considerable growth in its first years of functioning, with 87 effective paying members, listing amongst them scientists, artists, authors, doctors, engineers, lawyers, magistrates, members of the nobility, army and navy officers, civil servants, teachers, artisans, and businessmen. The number of visitors reached almost 1,500 people a year, which was considerable for that time. The codifier was strict in the compliance of the statutory rules and with the issue of discipline. Kardec, who served in the post of president from its creation, tired with the excessive work and upset with administrative squabbles, mentioned the desire to resign the position many times. However, urged by the spirits who were the coordinators of the work, he carried on the exercise of president of the society until his death. According to what can be noticed in the writings, documents, and testimonies of the time, the codifier was strict in the compliance of the statutory rules and with the issue of discipline with the management of the activities carried out there. He required extreme seriousness from all the participants, and this contributed to more credibility for the institution and to its pronouncements regarding the themes dealt with. He was extremely prudent and austere with recorded opinions and never allowed the society to become an arena for controversies and sterile debates, which were generally instigated by those individuals who kind of were interested on deviating Spiritism from the course established by the works of the codification. With his death, which was due to an aneurysm, one of his closest collaborators, Pierre Gaetan Lemery, went on to carry out the functions of the editor-in-chief and director of the review Spirit, or the Spiritist magazine, and manager of the Library Spirit, or the Spiritist library. However, without the same credentials of the codifier, and because of his excessive spirit of tolerance, he was not able to obstruct the action of pseudo-supporters who perverted the purpose of the magazine, opening its pages to advertisements of spiritualist philosophies, including the ideas of Raustein, which differ from Spiritism. At the same time, there was a perversion of the Spiritist magazine's purpose, where free space, quote, free space was given to the fighters of all schools, with the condition that they defended spiritualist causes or causes of essentially humanitarian and moral order, to the thus opening itself to fierce criticisms from some, to the accusations or dissatisfaction of others. According to the work entitled The Process of the Spiritists, published by the Brazilian Spiritist Federation, pages 22 and 23, second edition. In Brazil, in present times, we can clearly observe that history is repeating itself. Within these fighters of all schools are included supporters of Orientalism, such as Theosophists, Buddhists, occultists, esoteric, etc., as the work entitled Allan Kardec by Zeus Van de Wiel and Francisco Thyssen informs us. That is, therefore, the cause of the disappearance of the Spiritism in France. The syncretism and the miscellany of the Spiritism with other spiritualist schools perverted the Spiritist practice in its totality, so much that today in France and practically all of Europe, it is confused with all kinds of superstitions such as astrology, fortune-telling, witchcraft, sorcery, etc. In Brazil and in present times, we can clearly observe that history is repeating itself, being that the tactic of the hidden enemies of Spiritism remain the same, that of proposing and enforcing surreptitious entry of questionable practices and ideas into the bosom of the Brazilian Spiritist movement. And on one hand, we had the adoption of Raustein's works by the Brazilian Spiritist Federation as its members nicknamed these works with the titles Higher Course in Spiritism, or The Fourth Revelation, or even Revelation of the Revelation. Thanks to that, we feel the effect of these federalist policies today, in that a soppy, subservient, and church-going mentality, which is wrongly confused with a charitable and tolerant posture, has become established in the movement. This is due to a whole set of works, mediumistic or not, which, even though they do not mention Raustein or his works, were able to surreptitiously instill the neo-Docetist full set of ideas into the bosom of the Brazilian Spiritist movement. On the other hand, in adopting ideas different from Raustein's, the supporters of Orientalism, who judge themselves capable of enriching Spiritism and with basis mainly in the dictates of the spirit Ramades to the spiritualist medium Hercílio Maes, insist upon giving Spiritism a mystical facet that is based on Eastern religions from the past and on theosophy. For such, they do not fall to call Kardec and consequently the works of the Spiritist codification outdated and the Spiritist philosophy in need of mending patches. Besides considering the spirit Ramades himself in his confused dictates as the main artificer for this mission, under the banner of universalism, term generally used to cover up syncretistic ideas and fetishist practices. The list of innovation advocated by these sectarian strongholds is extensive. Adoption of astrology, of past life therapy, rituals, terminology strange to Spiritism, belief in prophecies regarding the destruction of the planet, and all kinds of mystical divagations without the least rational or factual basis, thus generally inducing a mystical religious alienation that is not far short from the traditional dogmatic religions, only with a different facet of an essentially esoteric nature. Therefore, while we experience all this with crossed arms, victimized by the false idea that we are being intolerant and non-fraternal by studying hard and not endorsing this attempt to distort Spiritist understanding and practice, which take place inside and outside Spiritist centers and federation, everything will stay as it is, with a tendency to get worse, in the same way as happened to Christianity, which is similar to a patchwork quilt due to the same factors that threaten Spiritism today. The writer Vanda Simões, a Brazilian writer, a Brazilian Spiritist, observes this reality attentively and once wrote an interesting article entitled Our Imperfect Spiritists, which we transcribe here and use it to conclude our considerations. So we wrote a article in which we transcribed, right, this article by Vanda Simões. So she wrote at the time, Allan Kardec once affirmed that the worst enemies of Spiritism would be amongst its members. This affirmation seems to appear hard and radical, but it came from himself and he knew what he was talking about. Today, in this world with so much confusion, the Spiritist movement finds itself wrapped in a tangle of nonsense that leaves the serious Spiritists worried about the destiny of the philosophy in the world. It is difficult to understand that such a rational and pioneering philosophy could have prepared people with a perception of life which is so narrow and hard set. One of two, either Spiritist philosophy is defective or the Spiritists have not understood its moral scope. Knowing the untruth about the first hypotheses, it is left to us to bow to the reality of the latter. He said, "It is time for change. The millennium starts and a new phase starts on the planet." And also Vanda Simons wrote, "The proof of this is in the form of how the Spiritist philosophy is practiced in the Spiritist centers of the entire country, in this case, Brazil, with perfect replicas abroad, mainly in Portugal and in the United States, forming supporters who are Spiritists in name only. They are imperfect spirits, of which the movement is full, as for example, those who publicly affirm that Kardec is outdated and needs to be reinterpreted, when not even 10% of his thoughts are known in depth. They consider themselves versed for having read the basic works in all the ancillary literature, psychographed or not. To read is one thing, but to study, to understand, and to comprehend is a totally different matter. The modern Spiritists seem to ignore such things, and if they know it, they do not give it any importance, as they defend bizarre ideas, which are contrary to the Cartesian fundamentals, based in writings dictated by misleading and pseudo-wise spirits. These ideas are easily infiltrated in our environment because they find fertile ground in naivety and lack of study, which makes people accept everything without questioning. It is time for change. The millennium has already started, and a new phase begins for the planet. The Spiritist centers need to become prepared to support man within a life philosophy which is better, more just, and broader in its comprehension of divine matters. In order to do so, it needs serious spiritists who understand the true meaning of Spiritism and who can bring a new order of practices and goals into the Spiritist centers, forming truly good men. It needs Spiritists who are able to remove from Spiritist centers everything that is not useful for the edification of the creature. And finally, to show to the modern Pharisees the true face of the Spiritist philosophy as humanity's modifying agent and not as instrument of false virtues, of mere self-promotion and a factory of fantasies. So as we can see, this is what Vanda Simons clearly stated some time ago, and we can really see that the same things have happened or continue to take place in the Spiritist movement. So I thank you very much for watching this video, and I would like you to subscribe to our channel, which is called Arthur Azevedo Difusão Espírita, or Arthur Azevedo Spiritist Diffusion, so that you can get to know some more things about Spiritism and about the Spiritist movement. So that was a pleasure having you here with us, and see you next time. Bye-bye.